What's going on, team? Proof here. And today I join you from spending time with my family, realizing that I didn't have a video scheduled for tomorrow, aka Sunday. And I kind of thought about what I could do that was timely and pertinent to talk about because I didn't have any gameplay video footage to provide people. And the thing I wanted to talk about was the new issue in Vanguard Zero on the global side, which is I guess the overwhelmingness question mark of MLB. And we no longer have the issue of farmers per se. Like, there are some still here and there, but it's not nearly as widespread as it used to be. So now that you're running into more actual people, the person who you're running into is more likely than not playing MLB over other decks. So you might be like me or people in my Discord chat who, as opposed to running the 4 out of 5 farmers, you're running the 4 out of 5 MLB players, and you have to deal with this incredibly strong, potent deck. And it's kind of an issue because it's far and away the best deck in the game on the global side right now. And what I wanted to do is kind of talk about what makes MLB so good and a way or two that it could be tweaked if Game Studio or Bushiroad wanted to hit it on the global side. Because what they've done on the JP side by hitting Wingo Brave, in my opinion, isn't a big enough nerf to it. And as opposed to trying to wait for new cards to flush out MLB per se, I would prefer if they hit it early, and maybe they can do it on both sides at the same time. So the things that kind of set MLB apart from every other deck is that MLB has permanent 2K and permanent critical if you meet the condition. So if you're unaware of what it does, it says on Vanguard, if you have Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark in your soul, it gets plus 2K power permanently. And then also on Vanguard, when it attacks, you can put Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark into your soul, and the critical becomes 2 permanently. And then just for that battle, it gets plus 10,000 power, which helps you hit over defensive triggers and over damage shields and stuff like that. So for a not very hard cost, and it's free, you can absorb the 2 blades or the 2 blasters into your soul and get the critical remaining for the rest of the game. So you can immediately start chin checking your opponent, see if they have PGs in their hand. Otherwise, you might just outright win the game before your opponent can stabilize. And the ways that MLB can do that are massive because it has massive consistency, which is the first thing that it has that I wanted to talk about. So to be able to use MLB starting off on your grade 3 turn, which is the ideal time to do it, you have Leanne, which can filter you out early and often because it's a grade 1. You have Gancelot, which can search out Blaster Blade, which is one of the pieces you need. And you have Star Call, which can find the missing piece as well. And some decks also play old King of Knights Alfred, because the deck doesn't use a lot of counterblast outside of Wingo Brave, which is another consistency piece, and Blaster Blade and Star Call. So if all you're doing is missing one piece to your blaster puzzle, you can afford to use Counterblast 3 from King of Knights Alfred to call the missing piece out so you can absorb it for MLB if the need requires it. And you might notice with Wingo Brave being a consistency piece and it's a forerunner, you might have noticed games, like I feature games on my channel, that I don't give my opponent damage if I feel that they're missing the combo, if I'm able to start attacking. Because sometimes and it's worked out in the past to where my opponent is missing a piece to the combo, and I didn't give them the damage to use Wingo Brave, so they don't find that missing piece, which delays them for a turn. However, there are going to be some games where even if you try to deny your opponent the damage for Wingo Brave, they just naturally draw all 3 pieces to this particular Exodia. And not only have you delayed trying to finish your opponent off, you've also given your opponent the opportunity to give you 1 or 2 damage ahead of time because you're afraid to give them damage to counteract the Wingo Brave. So then your opponent has 2 damage up on you, and then they go into MLB, which has 2 critical ready to roll, which means it kind of furthers your damage gap in and of itself, which is a huge problem. So outside of that, outside of being majorly consistent, majorly, outside of being majorly consistent, it has what I think which helps, or one of the 2 main things that help set it apart from Perfect Riser, which is the old critical Vanguard that was a not a huge problem, but it was out there in the world pre-MLB. It has spot retire in Blaster Blade. And Blaster Blade, if you're not aware, Counter Blast 2 when it's placed to retire one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards. And why is that so important is that it kind of acts as a restanding rear guard, because for the low cost of Counter Blast 2, if your opponent has 2 intercepts on the board, Blaster Blade can nuke one. Maybe it's one that's 10k and it can't attack into it unboosted. And then it can attack into the other one unboosted, assuming it's 9k and below, which most other grade 2s are. So Blaster Blade is able to freely attack into it. And then once those 2 are clear out the way, then MLB, if it has 2 crit, can start coming down the center. And like I said a minute ago, can start chin checking you to see if you have PGs in your hand. And that's not something that Perfect Riser had, which made you feel safe in the long game, because if you had 2 intercepts down, then if you had a PG in hand, your opponent would have to deal with both intercepts, and then you can just PG the Perfect Riser, and then you would have your follow-in turn. Because most Perfect Risers outside of the battle rise you get off of the on ride skill, they don't play stand triggers. So you don't have that same safety with MLB, because Blaster Blade is very prevalent because it's very easy to find, which kind of brings me to point number 3, in that it has heal recycle, because Gansalot can search out Blaster Blade by returning back to your deck, which means it makes it a very easy target to make it your heal trigger, because you can kind of keep it in hand until you're ready to fire off the skill, provided you have Blaster Blades left in the deck, and you can immediately put it back into your deck, search out the Blaster Blade, which can spot retire, and then on your upcoming drive check, if your damage is equal or more than your opponent, you have the ability to immediately check the Gansalot, and now you've removed your opponent's front row with 1 card in Blaster Blade. You're checking them for PGs with 2 crit MLB, and you just put in a new heal into your deck, which you might immediately check to reduce your damage down while doing all this other stuff to pressure your opponent. And it kind of becomes such a super duper well-oiled machine that it's harder to deal with than most other decks, to where a lot of decks now are starting to play critical triggers to try to keep pace with it and also deal with limit break related stuff. And that's another thing MLB does. It kind of checks the limit break format, because it's very easy to put your opponent to 3 damage and start immediately attacking with MLB, because the way PGs work, if you're threatening to push your opponent from 3 to 5, it's going to fire off the PG, which means your limit break opponent can't then have limit break enabled, because they're not going to be at 4 damage. So MLB has a leg up on limit break by being able to forcibly make them have PGs in hand, or forcibly use their PGs, and then once those are out the way, then they can just win the game soon after that by pushing from 3 to 5 and having backup attacks. And to me, that kind of encapsulates everything that's wrong with MLB right now. So it has major consistency, the spot retire, and the heal recycle all packaged together in one deck. And the only real weakness to MLB at the moment is that there's no way to forcibly guarantee PGs in your hand. The only way to do it is by hitting them off of draw triggers, or by filtering out with Leanne. And even then, even if you miss the PGs, by either way, you're still probably finding a piece to be able to enable MLB turn 3 as soon as possible. All that being said, what could they do to fix it? Because to me, the Wingle Brave hit by making it Counter Blast 2 and searching only a grade 3 isn't enough to hit the deck, in my opinion, because all people did in the JP side was that they shifted from playing Wingle Brave to playing the grade 3 searcher, and the grade 3 searcher comes with 1 Counter Blast and it's a main phase, so you could probably find either MLB or you could find Gansalot, and you could still enable the combo that way, because if you found Gansalot, you can immediately ship it back to your deck for Blaster Blade, and then you might already have Blaster Dark in your hand ready to go. So it wasn't a huge consistency hit to the deck. Now, to me, the main issue with MLB is the easy 2 crit that it can amass, because it's Counter Blast free as opposed to Counter Blast Counter Blast 2 or something like that. Unlike, say, Phantom Blaster Dragon, which you have to Counter Blast 2 and eat 3 to get the critical temporarily. And what I think needs to be done is that MLB needs to lose the permanent 2 crit that it receives from having both blasters and soul. And I think from what I've heard that a previous data mine of what people thought MLB would be featured that if you have blaster blade and soul, it got plus 1000 power. And then if you have blaster dark and soul, it got the additional 1000 power. So it kind of accumulated that way. And then you only got the 2 crit and power if just for the turn if you absorb the blaster blade and dark. And I think that's fair, because if you're able to sit on 12k, that's fine. But then if the game forces you to have additional blaster blade and blaster darks to be able to have the critical for the duration of the battle, that kind of forces the hand of the MLB player to not feel so safe and be able to just keep immediately checking your opponent's PGs. You need to have follow-up blaster blade and blaster darks if you're trying to repeatedly check them with the critical triggers, or you have to tweak their deck up. They can't play 9 draws anymore. So to me, the best way to nerf MLB is to kind of make some sense of what I'm talking about, is to require the critical to come from just the skill of absorbing blaster blade and blaster dark, as opposed to making a permanent fixture for having them in soul. The only other one I could think of was not let Ganslot be a heal trigger if you have MLB, but I think that's a fairly complex nerf to do in a digital platform that I don't think it would be something that they would go for in from Game Studio / Bushiroad. So I think this is a more elegant nerf to MLB while keeping MLB in the spirit of what it's trying to accomplish, which is having pseudo cross-ride power with the blades, with the blasters and soul. And yeah, that'll do it. I kind of got out what I wanted to talk about. Hope I was clear. Hope I was cogent. And let me know what you think down below. Let me know what your feelings are for MLB. Let me know what you think about my potential nerf idea. Let me know if you have other nerf ideas in mind. Hope you like these little proof talks, I guess you want to call them, because they do come up from time to time. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Hope you had a great weekend, and I'll catch you next time. Peace. Be easy.